Of Getting In, a College Coach Conversation. I'm Sally Ganga from College Coach. I hope you're doing as well as possible in this very stressful time for our nation and the world. There's a lot of uncertainty, but we're here to try and answer your questions about college admissions and college success as best as we can in the changing landscape. For our second and third segments, Shannon Vasconcelos, college finance consultant here at College Coach, will be answering listener questions with me. So stick around for that. But first, I'm welcoming Cassie Hemstrom. Cassie is a lecturer in the University Writing Program at UC Davis and teaches a variety of lower and upper division composition courses, including expository writing, writing for business, and writing in the health sciences. So we'll be discussing how high school students can prepare for the rigors of college writing and touch a little on what students can do once they get to college if they are struggling. Hello, Cassie.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for being here. And listen, I've given a little bit of background on you, but tell me about like how you became a writing instructor, professor, give us a sense of your background there.
Oh, sure. Well, I went to graduate school for literature because that's what I thought I was most interested in. And along the way, I did a lot of teaching lower division introduction to writing classes. So writing 1, composition 1 and 2 that every college offers. I taught those at Boise State University when I was getting my master's degree. And then when I was working on my PhD in literature at University of Nevada, Reno, I taught those as well. And I also had the opportunity to get involved a little bit more in the program itself and doing some research, some collecting feedback to see what sorts of methods work the best to teach writing at a college level. And I found that that's what I really enjoyed, was focusing on helping students to understand, the importance that writing has to them in their life and helping them to gain confidence in writing and to be able to build some flexibility in writing so that they can take it out of the classroom and use it wherever they're going to go in the future, whether that's into graduate school or on into a career. So that's what I ended up loving, and that's what I ended up doing. And now I'm a lecturer at UC Davis, and I get to do that all the time.
I think I really love it that, well, first of all, hopefully everyone acknowledges the importance of writing, but I feel like they don't always. When I talk to students, like I loved it that you're teaching classes for business majors and health science majors as well. I often, especially business majors, I find, and then also engineering majors are like, I don't really need to know how to write. I'm like, do you really think you don't need to know how to communicate? Because that's what writing is. And if you can't communicate, one of the things that I've noticed is I've seen people start in a field as like accountants or something like that, but it's the good communicators that get promoted. The people who know the basic skills but don't have a broader range of skills, they kind of get stuck at that entry level. So anyway, hoping you can address some of that.
No, that's exactly what I notice again and again with students. And sometimes students will even tell me that they intentionally picked a major in the sciences or in accounting, like you mentioned, because they thought they wouldn't have to write. And unfortunately, those are some of the fields where you're going to be doing the most writing. You need to be communicating with your clients. You need to be writing reports. You need to be keeping track of proposals. So it's really that kind of unlearning of what is even writing is one of the places that I start, because I think a lot of high school students get really used to writing a specific type of essay. Right. And that's a great tool for learning how to do critical thinking. And it's a great tool for learning how to get a grasp on some of the preliminary concepts of writing, right? How to have great writing structure, how to have really good grasp of the grammar and the mechanics. But then once you're in college, you're going to be working on writing in so many different types of situations. And that realization is, I think, a really big turning moment for a lot of students.
Yeah, I worked at University of Chicago, and there they had a course that they offered to seniors, a writing course specifically for, now you have to learn this whole different kind of writing.
Yeah.
and it's got to be easier to understand. And I thought that was so positive that an institution that, frankly, I loved it, but can be a little hidebound, let's just say, kind of ivory tower, just a little bit, right?
Right.
Or let's just say really a lot, but that they had this practical approach. They were like, okay, we think we've given you these great critical thinking skills. Now, how do you communicate to people out sort of in the real world, so to speak?
Right.
Yeah. And I'll just say, by the way, that at our job, we're always looking to hire people, and we've had to turn people away who were impressive in every single aspect other than writing.
Yeah.
And that
Yep.
was the one reason we couldn't hire them.
Yeah, and I hear that over and over and over again. I actually helped to run an internship program for our professional writing minors. And one of the things that they're able to do is get hands-on opportunities to learn from professionals in the field how to do the types of writing that they're going to need to do in their careers, in their academic discipline. And they have such a strong advantage over people who don't have those strong writing communication skills
Hmm.
once they get out onto the job market, or even applying for graduate school, because it's just a completely different world.
Yeah, yeah, without a doubt. All right. So now that hopefully we've convinced people that writing is important, how do they prepare in high school? Like, what kinds of skills are going to be necessary? What sort of preparation? I mean, obviously, do what your English teacher and your teachers in general ask you, but what are some
Mhm.
tips that you have?
Well, I think the most important thing is not being afraid of writing and not having a preconceived notion that there's only one right way to write. You have to be able to start thinking about how do you write differently in different types of situations. So, when you're writing in your English class, what are some of the things that you're doing that are making you successful in writing in that English class that maybe then you can turn into the types of writing that you're doing outside of school? If you're putting together a college application, what's going to be different about that type of writing than the writing that you're doing for your English class? And one of the things is to think about audience. Who am I writing this to? What's my purpose in trying to write this particular piece of paper? And also think about all the different ways in which you're creating and writing that you may not count as writing. Maybe you're a really good writer when you're not thinking of yourself as a academic writer. Maybe you're a really great writer when you're writing emails to your grandparents, when you're writing really hilarious short texts on Twitter to your friends, and thinking about how you can take skills from one section to other sections of your life is going to make you a much stronger student when you get into high school. Another thing you can do is read and write a lot. And that's just really important. And don't try to aim to be the best writer in the world. Writers make mistakes. Writers
Hmm.
do terrible drafts. It's all a process, and getting comfortable with that process is a really helpful thing to do once you're in college, because you're going to be needing to write all sorts of different things. You're going to have to write a timed essay that is, a 5 paragraph type timed essay for a class, but then you're also going to be having to put together a 8 to 10 page paper that you have worked on throughout the whole year. And that takes a totally different set of skills.
Hmm. I think the point about the audience is a really good one too. I mean, I'm always talking about that with students when I work with them on their college admission essay. This is not your English teacher. You don't need a formal introduction. And in fact, the tone should be conversational. I've had to
Right.
really push back against parents too who want a business kind of writing. They sort of want well, our third quarter reports have been very strong. They kind of want to address. And I'm like, no, that's not what this is about. And the
Yeah.
colleges are going to see the transcript. They don't need to address the grades. This is about something different, so the audience is so important, I
Hmm.
think. And I get, though, that it's pretty challenging because a lot of the students that I work with have never done any kind of writing other than writing an expository essay. So
Right.
how do you think they get, I mean, you mentioned just having them do writing. Like, what are ways they might gain some of that flexibility?
Yeah, so you might try just for yourself taking on some creative projects in different types of areas. If you're really passionate about something, start a blog.
Mhm.
Start writing some blog posts about it and
Mhm.
see what sorts of things, monitor the reactions from your audience, right?
Mhm.
So if you're really into baseball, start writing a monthly blog post and sharing it even just on your social media with your friends and seeing what sorts of things resonate with your audience. And you can
Mhm.
get that reaction in real time. This is something that we didn't have when we were growing up and
Yeah.
becoming writers. But this generation of college students has that opportunity to get immediate feedback and engagement and see what sorts of things really work to pull their audiences in.
Mhm.
So, and even if it's an Instagram post, you can vary up the different types of descriptions, play around with the wording, and see what sorts of things get your audience to engage with you more. And
Mhm.
by bringing, it's a critical lens, right? It's thinking critically about your own writing. And
Mhm.
then you can see what things work for you and what things don't work for you. And just by being more critical in your writing, you're going to be able to make better writing decisions in the future.
Yeah, be willing to edit. Don't just always
Mhm.
use the first thing that comes out on the page. I think
Oh,
is
yeah.
already huge. When you send an email to an old person like me, because none of my students use email except for me because I make them.
Good.
Use edit it. Make sure you use proper language. Learn how to do that. That's really going to help you.
Yep,
So,
that's the first assignment I teach in my business writing courses is how to write a strong, targeted, cold email to someone who you'd like to form a network connection with in your field, because
mhm.
it's incredibly crucial. That's going to be three-fourths of most jobs is email writing.
Mhm, mhm. Oh, for sure. Yeah, and believe me, they're not gonna be going towards Instagram anytime soon, people. So you need to go with there's gonna be plenty of people my age when you graduate from college. So what will students be expected to do? Like, we've talked a lot about how to be successful in business and general communications, but what do students need to
Mhm.
do to be successful once they get to college in their writing?
So you need to be able to follow directions. You need to be able to look at the writing situation that you're being asked to do. And hopefully, for most of the writing situations in college, you're going to have either an assignment sheet that tells you really specifically what you're writing for and what type of writing that should be, what genre it is, what the format should be, and who your audience and purpose is, right? And that's something that may not be explicitly stated on your assignment sheet. But by looking at your assignment sheet with a critical lens, you can usually figure those things out to see for yourself, okay, what are the things I need to do here to succeed in responding appropriately to this writing situation?
Mhm.
Um, so that means that you can't just take down notes during class on what the teacher's talking about. You really have to look at the assignment sheet itself. Now, sometimes you don't have a really great assignment sheet. And that's when I come to point number 2 is talk to your teachers. And that can be really intimidating. College is a big, scary place. And depending on if you're at, a giant university that does a lot of research, or if you're at a small liberal arts college, it could be very different what your interactions are going to be with your lecturers or with your professors. But all of your professors are going to have office hours, and almost all of them are going to really want to engage with you.
Mhm.
Most professors became professors because they love working with students. So go and talk to your professors. And it doesn't have to be a long conversation. It can just be pop in during their office hours and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking of doing for this assignment. Does that sound okay?
Mhm.
um, and even just opening that door a little bit so that you can ask for more advice and more guidance. Pay attention in class and get a really good peer group with your classmates as well, so that you can do some rough drafts with your classmates. If you don't have a formal way to do it in your class, most writing classes are going to include some sort of rough draft workshopping where you can sketch out a draft and then look over it with some other people who are working on that same project. But you're not going to have that in a science class, right?
Mhm.
So being able to form small groups of your friends who are also in the same boat, or even other classmates. Most schools also have writing centers, taking advantage of those writing centers where you can go in and have a student who's been trained to do writing workshops with you sit down and take a look at your work and it's not a critical sort of situation, right? It's not somewhere where they're sitting down, they're saying, oh, you did this wrong and this wrong. They're there to help you take something that's a draft to be in a really polished final end product. So take
Mm-hmm.
advantage of all of those services that are available, and take advantage of your friend group, and give yourself time too. Don't try and get in a big project the night before. I've done that. We've all done that. But you're going to be much happier, and it's going to be a much easier process if you just give yourself some time, start with some brainstorming, start with a very rough draft where you don't have really high expectations for yourself, and
Mm-hmm.
then workshop it and keep working on it. If you're doing research, you might need to revisit your research a couple of times throughout the process. You might need to do some initial research, write a draft, see what else you need to learn more about, and then revise that research and revise the draft.
Mm-hmm. All right. All great advice. And I just want to stress, because this was me, like I didn't realize that I should just be doing these things even if I wasn't sure I was messing up. Like I
Yeah,
really like, I mean, my first draft of my first paper was fine. And the professor was very like all
right.
about helping us with that first draft. But why not go to the writing center? Even if you're afraid to go to the professor initially because you're
Mhm.
intimidated, just go to the writing center. Even if you think your paper's good, go to the writing center, get a second opinion. This is not something that should wait until a crisis moment. Get in the habit of doing it right off the bat. And that's how you're really going to be learning as well, I think.
Yes, absolutely. And building up those good skills is incredibly crucial for when you get into the job market and you want to be able to do these things on your own. When you're working with a team, almost all business writing, almost all science writing is going to be collaborative anyway. So having the skills to workshop drafts with other people, taking advantage of opportunities for group work in school to kind of play around with different approaches to that group work and see what group work works best. Those are going to be incredibly useful skills that you can put on your resume and then use to get, really successful in your job.
Hmm. Okay, great. Listen, thank you so much. I really appreciate this. I think it's really
Absolutely.
good advice for students on a topic that, frankly, students and parents don't think enough about. So,
Yeah, it's one of the most useful skills you can get. And I have students write every week. I get a student email from a former student telling me that my class and the skills they learned are things that they're still using 5, 10 years down the road.
All right. All right. So now we'll be taking a short break, but when we return, Shannon Vasconcelos and I will be answering listener questions.